sitting here in front of this fireplace in the Tribeca Pavilion. In a couple of months, this is going to be one of the best places to be outside because we'll be able to enjoy a fire here. And we'll get to experience this fire that exists in a space that was created for it, that gives off the goodness of heat and light and brings community together. Later today, I'll head home, and around dinner time, I'll light the stove to cook dinner, and the fire that comes out of that stove will cook food that I can share with my family. You see how this works? Over the summer, I got to experience one of the best fireworks displays that I've ever seen. And however they did that with matches or technology and computers, somehow they took the fire and lit a fuse that sent a firework up into the sky and ignited the gunpowder or whatever they put in those and lit up the night sky with this beautiful display of fireworks. I'm not sure if you've picked up on it or not, but all the things I'm saying about fire are true about sex and sexual desire, which just happens to be what Jesus is talking about in this section of the Sermon on the Mount that we're studying today. So let's start here. In the context for which it was created, sex is amazing. It's this beautiful gift of God to humanity. And the Bible's not ashamed of this gift. It's not embarrassed about it. The Bible talks about this gift of sex in these incredible ways. It's the act that bonds a man and a woman together as a seal of the covenant that they make. One of the byproducts of sex is literally human life. How amazing is that? Sexual desire between lovers is celebrated in the Bible in places like the Song of Songs. And then by the time we get to the New Testament, the bond between a husband and a wife jumps to a whole different level as it becomes a symbol of the depth and mystery of the union between Christ and his church. In our culture, we tend to take this beautiful gift of God and cheapen it into not much more than a bodily transaction between two people. Or worse, we make it about objectifying another human being for our own sexual gratification. You and I swim in this sexualized culture where this gift of God of sex, which has all the potential for good and beauty in the world, we experience it, maybe more often than not, as this destructive force in the world. I mean, let's be honest, every day we hear more stories about human trafficking. The pornography industry has gotten its reach into so many aspects of our lives. And we have an advertising industry that uses sex to sell anything from like a hamburger to a used car. We've created a hookup culture where the next sexual encounter is no further away than a swipe. And we have to search in these ways to find someone else's body to use. Jesus addresses this in the Sermon on the Mount. And for Jesus, as he's inaugurating this new kingdom, it's about helping this people learn to live in a different way in relationship to one another. And the objectification of someone else for sexual purposes has no place in the kingdom of God. In fact, the objectification of any human being for any purposes has no place in Jesus' kingdom. But maybe one of the most destructive ways that we experience this in our lives is in the area of sexual desire. So, Jesus, never one to beat around the bush or avoid the tough conversations, knows this can be an issue for a human community trying to live faithfully together. And so he goes straight for it in our passage for today. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Here Jesus is doing what he did with the last teaching on anger. You've heard it said, and there's the command, no adultery. But then Jesus is going for more here. It's not just about keeping your body out of bed with someone else. That doesn't happen out of nowhere, right? It's not like one day you just wake up and, oh my goodness, I've committed adultery. Jesus, for him, it's about finding where that trajectory that ends in adultery begins and cutting it off there. And in Jesus' teaching, that happens in the heart or in the center of our will and desire. All the way back when we make the choice to objectify someone else in our minds for sexual purpose. This is what the phrase lustful intent is all about. Listen, it's not a sin to notice someone who's good looking. We're wired to recognize beauty in other human beings. But there's a shift between a notice that's involuntary and a decision to fix our eyes on another person in a way that denies their humanity and makes them an object for the movies that play out in our minds. And while we might not think that mental space causes any damage, Jesus tells us to think again. It causes damage all the way down on a heart level for the person who is engaging in this kind of practice. And for a people whose actions flow out of the heart, that's a serious thing. And it's beyond that. The depth and breadth of damage that runs through a culture that treats sex in these ways, it's like a forest fire that devours entire landscapes. You can see the damage almost anywhere you look in our culture. And this is why Jesus is sounding the alarm about this practice that might not seem so harmless. Oh, it's a private thing, it's in my mind, or it's on my phone. Nobody else can see what it is that I'm engaging with. But Jesus takes it seriously. And he goes on in our passage. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It's better for you that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your members than your whole body go into hell. So, Jesus can sometimes use language to get a point across. He knows how to do that. My guess is that that's a part of what's going on with his phrasing here and his language here. This area of unchecked sexual desire that gets unleashed into the world in destructive ways is something that must be addressed for people of the kingdom. But I think there also might be another thing at play here as well. In the Jewish scriptures, sometimes parts of the body were spoken of metaphorically. So your eyes might be the way that you see the world. And you know how we might use that kind of a phrase, how you see the world, your worldview, or what you're taking in that way. The hand represented your actions in the world. And your feet, which isn't a part of what Jesus addresses here, but it's another example, are spoken of as the way you walk in the world, or your way of life. So I think Jesus also might be getting at something here. If your way of viewing the world includes the objectification of others, change your viewing patterns. If the way you see the world is saturated regularly in sexualized images or content, then gouge that out of your life. If your hand or your actions include activities like the sexualized stares or the consuming of pornography or the actions of sexual intimacy outside of marriage or any other action that might have a tendency to treat another person like an object, cut those things out of your lives before they damage you in ways that can stretch on into eternity. It would be better to make adjustments now, even if those adjustments are painful, than to move into eternity with those kinds of destruction having happened inside of your life. Friends, I know this is a tough message, and in this kind of format, we don't have enough time to go all the way into it. But it's one that few of us can listen to or even speak in ways that don't make us uncomfortable. I get it. But Jesus wasn't here to be the shame and guilt police, and neither am I. Jesus was here to lead us into a better way of life. And for Jesus, this is one of the areas of life where there's a better way than the kingdoms of the world have to offer. I know sometimes it's hard to understand and get a good discernment and picture of that because in the kingdoms of the world, there's so much glitz and polish on the ways that culture has dramatized sex in that environment. But Jesus absolutely is teaching us the better way here. Jesus' way is a way that honors the full humanity of others and in turn honors the full humanity in you. His way is a way that cherishes our ability to point beyond ourselves with marriages to the good that point to the goodness and faithfulness of God. It's a way that creates safety and security for women in our culture here. And it's a way that allows love to flourish within covenants that grow over a lifetime. Friends, these are the kinds of things that the gift of sex was made for. And in these ways, it's good and it's beautiful. If you find yourself having fallen short of this vision, you're not alone. Know that today, Jesus' desire is for you to be made whole. And that God is a God full of grace and mercy and forgiveness. And He has the ability to cleanse hearts and transform minds. God also has an abundance of wisdom and truth. That if you will open your life up to Him, if we will do that together as a community, He will lead us into ways that are more life-giving and life-honoring when it comes to how we experience and engage in the world of sex and sexual desire. Friends, this is the way of Jesus. I want to invite you to walk into it, to keep your eyes and your hands pure before the Lord, to receive the grace and mercy that He gives, to allow your life and our lives together to be transformed into the image of Jesus, that we might be a community that honors all of life on a deep, mysterious, even kind of level.